Good evening. I'll now call the City of Cannon Falls City Council meeting for Tuesday, October the 16th to order. Roll call.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Holst.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Matson is gone. McCusker.
Yes.
And Mayor Robinson.
Here. All please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. And at this time, the chair will take a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor? Opposed? Agenda is approved. Moves us to item 5, public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the minutes. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And seeing as there's no one else here that would like to speak, we'll move on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. Items on this portion of the agenda may be adopted or they may be removed and placed on the business area of the agenda for discussion purposes before approving. For those at home, I will read the consent agenda. Item A is the just and correct claims for the accounting period ending October the 12th, 2012. Item B, the meeting minutes for the October 2nd, 2012 City Council meeting. Item C, Resolution 1983, approving conditional use permit variance for Casey's General Store. Item D, Resolution 1984, accepting a grant from AgStar Funds Emergency Response Services equipment for the fire department. Item E, application for payment number 11 for the 2011 Westside Street Improvements Project. Item F, union agreement approval. Item G, Resolution 1985, approving a cooperative snow removal agreement with MnDOT. Item H, budget work sessions. Item I, the cable franchise renewal audit. And item J, the library project change orders and change management agreement amendment. Are there any items anybody wishes to bring down?
Yes. E and J.
Okay, item E will become item 7C.
Aye for me, Ronnie.
And J will become the library project, or D will become the library project. And item I will be the cable franchise renewal audit, which will become item E. And with that, are there any other items that anybody wishes to bring down? If not, Chair will take a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to item A, Resolution 1986, accepting proposal on the negotiated sale of $3,125,000 in general obligation refund bonds, Series 2012B, and pledging special assessments for the security thereof and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a handout, which I apologize, I should have handed out earlier. This is the bond sale results, and I'll walk through that quick.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, George Eilertson, Northland Securities, and thank you for the time on your agenda. I was with you on September 18th. At that time, you approved a resolution setting a sale of the refunding bonds. During the time since, I've worked with your city administrator and assistant city administrator on the assignment of your bond rating. That AA- bond rating was reassigned relating to this bond issue. Standard & Poor's cited 4 key elements going into the assignment to that rating, one being your location in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Rochester metropolitan areas. Good income and strong wealth levels, very strong reserves, and good financial management for the city. So those four elements were key in their review of reassigning your AA- bond rating. Any cities, any municipalities within that AA credit are considered very strong. So I think being in that category certainly benefited you today when you went to the sale of your bonds. And actually, if I could direct you to page 4 of this handout, and I know you're. This is the tabulation of bids. This morning at 10:30, we took bids. The city received rather 7 bids, and we award on the true interest cost. You see that in the far right-hand column. That's the combination of the interest rate plus the compensation for the underwriter that they work for. UMB United Missouri Bank out of Kansas City was the low bidder with a 1.13% true interest cost. So I think a very favorable low bid. Again, nice to see multiple bidders like that. I was kind of, if Aaron and I would have had a conversation ahead of time, it would have been, if we can get anything beyond 3 bidders, I'd be happy. And to have 7, that was really a good sign. You've got a nice bond structure for one, and then, again, being in the AA category for your credit, really attracted bidders, I think, today. So,
Was this a national thing or just a statewide, or 3 or 4 states, or did it go?
It actually goes nationally, and you get a little flavor there. I mean, you see
Tennessee and Wisconsin?
Missouri, Tennessee, Wisconsin, and Minnesota certainly on the firms that bid. And that's kind of the usual names that bid on Midwestern, at least Minnesota bonds that are offered. So some nice names there. And so actually the resolution in your packet that the mayor referenced, that would, by approving that resolution, you would lock in the parameters of the financing. If I could now direct you to the last, well, actually, sure, why not the last page? This is the graph that just shows you the trend of municipal interest rates. Certainly the trend is down, as you can see. And we'd probably be most likely in that red area. That's the 10-year bonds. So this is most mirrors your length of bond issue. But certainly the trend has been down, and since we set the bond sale, or the city set the bond sale in September, interest rates have moved noticeably lower. So as a result, we've got much stronger savings than we showed you in September. Again, not to make you flip around too much, but the bottom of page 5, this would be the refunding overview, it says at the top of the page. This is the summary of the savings. When I attended your meeting in September, the column for net debt service reduction, if you can see that in the far right-hand column where it says 280,000, that was 216,000 back in September. So certainly this low bid from United Missouri Bank, very strong bid. As a result, the city generated over 60,000 more of savings with that aggressive bidding and, if you will, coming to the market at a very good time. So, so in hindsight, I think we can look back and say, I think it was a very good decision by the city to consider, moving ahead on this refunding. It's really a nice savings for the city. And again, this is the pertinent information on this page. The average interest rate that we were looking at back in September was 1.35. The average interest rate that you're locking in today would be 1.2%. Maybe to briefly talk about one item, and this actually relates to the bond resolution itself. The mayor had indicated in prefacing this, the $3,125,000 listed on the bond resolution. When we took bids today, and I'll be looking at page 6 on the handout, this is the way that a lot of bonds are being bid in the current bond market. They're bid with premiums, and the reason why I included this page in the handout is it explains why the bond issue was downsized by $40,000 from $3,125,000 to $3,085,000. It's the effect of a bond premium coming in. The coupon is what the city will actually pay interest on. So you'll pay interest from 1% out to 1.65%. When the city makes a payment on the bond, it'll be based upon that column. The investor will be earning based upon the yield column. So lower interest rates, that's the actual market, is the yield column. Investment banks are currently bidding with a lot of premiums. Now what happens is the investor has to pay a premium for that higher coupon. What happens is the spread between those two columns comes in as revenue to the city. So what we generally do, especially on a refunding bond, is we take that premium and we downsize the bond issue. So there was $24,000 of premium generated on this bond issue. So what we did is took that plus lower compensation to the underwriter or the purchaser and downsized the bond issue. To maybe explain that one other way is it works out as a push. If the city is paying at that higher interest rate in the coupon column, but borrowing less. So basically we're downsizing the bond issue but paying at a higher interest rate. The effect is the same as if you were paying interest at that lower interest rate, the same as the yield, and borrowing more. So it works out as a push to the city. But that's, again, a way that investors are really bidding on the bonds these days. So just a little explanation of why, when the resolution, Mr. Mayor, is introduced, I would ask that you say $3,085,000 as the dollar amount for that reason. And so we didn't know that until we took bids this morning, if there would be a downsizing or adjusting. So the short of it is very, very strong bid results today. 7 bidders coming in at interest rates that are terrific. We've got interest rates, at least short-term interest rates, that are haven't been this low, or the last time they hit these levels was in the mid-1960s. So, so again, very good, as you can see by the graph and the results. Very, very nice time to be in the bond market to refinance debt. Any questions, Mayor or Council?
The bond market, is the bond market still strong for municipal bonds, right?
Very, very strong. The reason,
Well, they used to be the gold standard next to treasuries, I guess, for safe investors, because the risk potential is very low for municipal bonds. But there are general obligation bonds we're discussing right now, right?
that's correct.
Just for my own interest, does the rating depend on whether the city is going to issue general obligation bonds or just general bonds? I mean, just non-specific bond, not general obligation bonds. How do they rate it? Or does the city have the same thing for?
The city has a rating, an underlying rating for general obligation debt of that AA-. If you issue debt that's non-general obligation, that would come at a different rating. For example, a lot of times cities consider lease revenue debt for municipal buildings, fire halls, city halls, things of that nature. And they're not general obligation, but they're a lease type of financing. That's typically notched down 1 or 2 from your general
So a
obligation
lease would
rating.
be like equity, like you're giving something in return?
Yes.
Besides the trust, besides the word of the city, I mean, you're.
Right. That kind of debt would not have your AA- rating. It would be notched down a little bit. But again, most of what the city considers doing, street projects, infrastructure, or water sewer type projects, is going to be general obligation backed. And again, the city's built up a really nice credit rating to be in that AA category. So I think that's certainly one of the reasons why you got 7 bidders and 7 that bid as aggressively as they did.
Any other questions?
Probably help you got an Irishman on there.
Are there, do we have any other bonds that we could take advantage of the market with now, or not?
Well, we have, we certainly looked at existing debt, all of the city's existing debt, when we recommended pairing these two together. A lot of it depends on call features, call dates.
These are callable, right?
These are callable. One is what's called a current refunding. That means that the Series 2006A is callable February 1 of 13, so we're within a window of time that's considered a current refunding. The other, the 2006B, is an advance refunding because we're not yet to the call date. That's February 1 of 2015, so 2 years away. But you can lock in a future savings one time during the life of a bond issue. So combining two like bond issues saved on costs and I think was a pretty efficient use of that authority to advance refund once. Just coincidentally on this new bond issue, and I know I'm going a lot longer than I did when I was here the last time, but the new bond issue, one of the benefits of the current bond market is you can have earlier call dates. So February 1 of 19 is your new call date. In markets past, it's typically been about halfway through or a little bit later in a bond issue. And actually, this is about halfway through because this bond issue is only about 10 more years left. But I think it's perhaps unrealistic, Mayor, that you would refinance again, but the call date gives you the option to prepay as well. So that might be something that will help the city look at down the line.
Appreciate it.
Certainly nice for the taxpayers that we
Yep.
saved $280,000.
Yep. That combined with the one we did last time, I think it's been about 400,000 that we've been able to save. So we appreciate all the hard work and that you guys do and helping us look at this and going after it when we can. So at this time, the chair will take a motion to approve Resolution 1986, accepting proposal on the negotiated sale of $3,085,000 worth of general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2012B, and pledging the assessments for the security thereof and levying a tax for the payment thereof.
So moved. I'll second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All favored?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to item B, which is the special council meeting.
Yeah, usually in the past, we have elections on a Tuesday, and by Thursday, the county always gets us the final results for canvassing, so it's never been a major issue. So when we rescheduled that first meeting in November to the 8th, we just assumed they'd get it to there. Well, this year they said, for whatever reason, they probably won't get it to us until Friday. So if they get it to us by Thursday, we won't need this meeting. I'll just add it to that regular agenda on Thursday the 8th. But if for whatever reason they don't get us the results until Friday, we have to canvass within a window. And of course, that window is the following week before our next council meeting. So we'd have to have a special meeting, and basically all it is we have a resolution, and it has all the results of the election attached to it, and you vote to approve it, and that's it. It's just something we're required to do as a city with the elections. So we need to schedule a special meeting for that week of the 12th. We may not need it. If we get the canvass results on Thursday the 8th, we'll just add it to the agenda that night. But if we don't, for whatever reason, then we'll have to have a meeting. It really shouldn't, there's nothing we can do but approve them. So it'll take about 2 minutes to have the meeting. So whenever would work for a majority of the council, that would be fine with me. It doesn't matter.
Well,
I
I-
want to just have a Friday one and cover it all, or people would rather not have it on a Friday.
well, I was thinking, we're used to meeting on Tuesdays. Maybe just do it on the Tuesday, that 13th?
Yeah, it would be the 13th.
Works for me.
Yeah, I'm fine
All
with
right.
that.
That ain't gonna work for me.
But is it okay, just because all we're doing is this?
That's fine with me. I mean, I've got another obligation that night.
Yep. But, I mean, really, we don't have anything we can do but approve it. It's kind of silly that we have to, but it's a requirement.
That or we can do it Monday the 12th, I mean.
Yeah,
We have,
was gonna add too, that it looks like we're gonna have the planning commission meeting that Tuesday night, the 13th, at 6:30, so I'll have probably two.
Yeah, so if we could do it right before that even, we could maybe schedule a meeting for 6:15 and do the
6:15.
meeting, and then a couple of these guys would be there anyways for the planning commission.
And if you're not here.
Yeah, Bill will have to do it because I've got a
Okay.
speaking engagement that night.
Okay,
Okay,
so we'll say the 13th at 6:15?
6:15.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, so at this time, Chair will take a motion to set the special meeting date of 11/13/12 at 6:15.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
13th, 6:50.
Carries. And then the other note that was in here, we know we will be doing our regular city council meeting on the 8th, that Thursday. Okay, that moves us to item C, which is the Westside street improvements payment.
Yes. Has S&H checked these, do they check these figures regularly
Yep.
for everything?
Yep, they always review all the totals and
Some of
all the
these-
things that are in there.
Some of these seem a little, I don't know, some of these seem a little high to me. I don't know enough about it, I'm not an expert in street construction, but some of these seem a little high and excessive. I wish our engineer was here. It's 17 or 1,800 for per manhole cover and some other things I noticed, I mean,
But those are all numbers that were in their bid. So, you know, the only thing we would, you know, usually a question with something like this is the quantities, you know, but the numbers that are, the costs are what was in their bid that was approved. So the costs aren't changing, it's just how many are there. That usually would be the question with something like this, but they do inspect it all and they verify that that is all there.
but they do bring down the things they don't use as much, don't they? Don't they bring
Yeah,
down?
if something's not used, then we don't pay for that quantity. So if they bid, the project for some reason called for 5 manholes, and that's what they bid at $1,700 a manhole, but we changed something or whatever that we only use 4, we would get a credit for that then. But everything that's in here has been installed, and it is according to the prices that were in the original bid. We haven't had any change orders to increase any bid areas or any costs.
It seems, I don't know, I suppose that, well, we will pay this, we will pay it off and everything, but some of these things seem a little excessive to me, I don't know. But we'll let it go.
Okay, with that, the Chair will take a motion to approve item 7C, which is going to be the payment for number 11 for the 2011 West Side Street Improvement Project.
So moved.
No, second?
I have a motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Is that a final payment, Aaron, then? Oh,
Done yet. We always, we'll hold that retainage amount, that 5% retainage,
okay.
all the way through until basically, I think, probably next spring. You know, we're gonna hold on to it over the winter, make sure that everything looks good next year, and then we'll close it out after that point.
Thank you.
Brings us to item 7D, which is the library project change orders and cost management.
Yes, I was
Agreement.
wondering about that, Aaron. We're getting something donated to the library, right?
Correct?
Will we be paying anything for that?
No, nothing at all for the fireplace. There'll be no city costs involved. It'll be either it'll be donated material and labor, and then anything that is required to be installed by the contractor, just because of what it is, will be paid for through a separate donation that just came in.
So that'll be covered, right?
Yes.
The other thing I was wondering was Bosshart's request for another, what, 12,000?
It's technically actually not a request. It's just more of a formality in the bookkeeping, because our original agreement with them was 5% based on our estimated project cost of 1.4 million, which
Right.
is standard. It's a percentage. It's you know, it's how we pay the architect as well for their work. It's always a percentage of project cost. Well, when that project came in, when the bids came in over budget, they still get that same percentage. It's just now of a higher number. So in this situation, it's just
Yeah.
kind of, it's just, you know, kind of clean that up. They felt better doing it this way, since they've been billing us for that original amount the whole way through, where they technically probably should have just billed us fit this into the original billings that we've been paying, but they didn't at first for whatever reason, and now that I don't know if they didn't catch it or what it was, but now that they have, they just want to clarify it and then just kind of get it caught up sort of deal. But it is within our original contract that the original price is based off this, so when you guys approved the final number, it did include this revised construction management cost. So it doesn't increase the cost of anything that we've approved. That was already in there when we did it. So that final number that we approved, the 156, whatever it all was, that included this. So it's not adding on to that at all.
So it's not increasing our?
No, that was already in there when we approved that, that final bid and project amount. Because that final amount that we approved included the bids that came in, all the construction management engineering costs, and then also our contingency fund. So this isn't increasing the project cost.
All right. They're not going to be doing any more work for the money, that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing that bothers me.
And I understand the argument, but.
No, I understand it's legal.
Yeah, it is how contracts are generally set up with engineers, architects, construction managers. This is percent of project costs. They give you an estimate up front, but they can't promise you what it is in the end.
Yeah, I know.
Once the bids came in, that's what that percentage cost came in off of. I don't disagree.
All right.
All right, any other further discussion? If not, Chair, I'll take a motion to approve item 7D, which is the library project change orders and change management agreement amendment.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Merle, second by Bill. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Moves us to item 7E, which is the cable franchise renewal audit.
Okay, Aaron, I got some questions for you on that. After reading about that cable thing and listening to our attorney speak about it, and we're doing this audit thing, and supposedly, the way I understand it, there's some franchise fees up front when we settle this thing. There's also a service fee we get per customer that hooks up and different stuff like that. I also came away from listening to the attorney that sometimes that stuff seems to get fudged on the light side a little bit or something. So when we talked about doing this audit, and we talk about a new contract, we're paying for this audit now, and it really bothers me, the idea that we have to pay money so somebody else is honest. I don't, if it was in our contract and everything was legitimate, I'm wondering why you find problems afterwards. And I'm concerned that our next contract that we negotiate would possibly be in there that if we do have to do any audits or examinations at the end, that the fee would be paid by MediaCom, not by us. So I think this is a good thing, but I got funny feelings how all this is working. And if I do talk to MediaCom when we had some problems, and thank goodness everything is working well now, that the one guy finally decided the wire was bad, now that's in and there's no problem since. I get nervous about if it takes over 6 months to handle this one situation in my household, how do you keep track of all these phone calls and this money that's supposed to be fair to everybody? So the whole thing makes me a little nervous, and I would just like you to give me your opinion and address it.
Well, and I don't disagree. I mean, the hard part for us is that, we sign the franchise, and the franchise says we get a certain percentage of the revenue as a franchise fee, and then we also get a set amount per new subscriber, paid to the city, or per subscriber paid to the city. But we're basing it off of their numbers. Now, the franchise, they're obligated to follow it, but the franchise says that we have the right at any time to audit that information to determine that they're following the franchise fairly, which is what this is here, because like was discussed before, there's been a number of cities that have done this, and pretty much all of them have found errors, and some significantly. Now, they're much bigger cities than us, but there was one that our attorney handled in the metro area that was almost $500,000 underpaid over the course of its franchise. Now, much bigger community, but still, it just lets you know that, there's two reasons to do it. One is to get back any revenue that's owed to us from the company, and then two, it's also to help set a baseline for moving forward with the new agreement that, we know what the right number is that we're working off of, that we can, factor into the agreement. But I would agree with you that we should try, I'm not sure how it legally works, we have to ask our attorney that, but should try include in the new agreement that if we have to do an audit, they would pay that cost, that the cable company would pay that cost. We can try to work that in, I think.
One
But
thing, Aaron, is if we did, say, a 5-year contract, do we get a printout every year of what happened for that year, or when do we find out where
we
things-
basically just get a check, and they say, here's your check, and it's based off of this revenue. But we don't get any sort of long reports that show us how they got to that revenue number, which is why they say you can audit us if you want to. Well, as you can see, it's not an easy thing to do, and we've talked to our auditors about it, and they don't handle it. I mean, generally, it's something that's done by a firm that specializes in these sort of things, which is the company we're using. It's a company that's used by a number of cities across the state. Our attorney recommended, they've used them before, had good success. But, I mean, yeah, it's just, unfortunately, in some of these situations, it's just the nature of these agreements. The agreements are set basically and controlled by federal law, and so they clearly are very complicated then. And cities of all size have trouble with enforcement of them. And, it's not smaller communities, it's not, it's all size communities have issues. And it's just, unfortunately, it seems to be how it works with the cable companies and trying to get compliance with the agreements and make sure that, they're paying what they're supposed to and things. So, I don't know what else to say except that there's no way that internally as staff, we have any idea of that they're paying us the right amount or not. It's just, we hope they're honoring their obligations within the agreement, but this is a way to ensure it, and then also it's a way to set the right baseline so we move into discussions, we know that we're using a right number too.
We discussed this at the Cable Commission meeting. What Leroy's question was brought up, and we did talk about it, and yeah, nobody was happy about having to pay the attorney's fees, but we thought it was the best thing to do because what Aaron just mentioned, and also because when you discuss these things with the company, there's different ways of interpreting what their costs are and what they say they have to spend for this or that. And the only way to do it is to go in and audit and actually see what happened. And this firm, like Aaron says, specializes in it. And we thought, and our attorney here recommended that we get an accounting firm anyway. We thought it was the safest way to do it. Last time we didn't have an attorney, and we got involved in some problems that we were a little bit more complex than we went into assuming. So we have to get this now. I think it's money well spent for this accounting firm.
I think it's the right thing to do. I agree with everything you said, and thank you for filling that in, Phil. But somehow, I think they need to be a little more accountable. And I don't know what that answer is outside of just to state my thoughts. And the last thing I want to do is come across is that I'm accusing them of something. I'm not saying that. You run a big company, you got people calling you, you got problems, you got all this. Who knows, somebody got sick and their father died and they missed work for 2 weeks. Everything got set back. The last thing I'm doing is accusing somebody of being crooked. But I do like the idea of them being accountable. And that makes it a lot better for everybody else. So whatever we can do to get to that point, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Leroy. At this time, the chair will take a motion approving the cable franchise renewal audit as presented and recommended by the Cable Commission.
So moved. I'll second.
A motion by Merle, second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And that brings us to reports. Justin? Mr. Maroney?
Just as I said earlier, the regular scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission is Monday night, the 12th, which is Veterans Day. In honor of Veterans Day, we won't be holding a Planning Commission meeting that night, but we will meet Tuesday night at 6:30 here at City Hall. So the Planning Commission meeting has been changed from Monday until Tuesday night. That's all.
Thank you. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Believe it or not, we're only a couple of weeks away from Halloween, and we won't have another council meeting before then, so I just want to remind the viewers to be extra careful as we have Halloween then on the 31st. Trick and Trot will be downtown at the in the business district from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. We will have officers and reserves down to help people get crossed at the intersections. So just again, the same message that you hear every year. Just drive safely for those that are out trick-or-treating. It will be dark. Remember to have flashlights or reflectors or something that'll make you stand out, especially if you're in a dark costume. That's all I have.
Thanks, Chief. Aaron? Merle?
Nothing? Nope. Yeah, there's one thing I'd like, at a future, council meeting for the council to think about is the, farmer's market and the possibility of perhaps asking them to, move to maybe the overflow lot from the ball field, looking at some, safety issues, parking issues, and our our trailhead is there, all coming together. So, Aaron, sometime in the next couple months, let's address that, and then we can go over all the pros and cons of looking at it.
Okay.
And then
Leroy?
on that subject, Aaron, have you heard on the Highway 19 project next year, is there any consideration to crossings or lights or anything down by our band shell? Anything in the new proposal that is going to change?
And Dave can probably even weigh in on this one too, because we've been going back and forth a lot with MinDOT on that. And you know, they keep saying no. It's not a location where they would allow any sort of marked or signal crossing. So we're trying now just to, you know, work on the trail and extending that and making a connection to the trailhead to the park overflow lot, but that's a funding issue too. And I don't know if you have anything different than that, but.
Only just to add to that, that recently we received from MinDOT kind of a general narrative of the process that we need to follow to really formalize the request. We will do that over time.
And that's been done before though already, right?
We've made official requests for them to consider it at staff level, but to officially process the permit request, we have to follow their procedures, which we will do.
Okay. So just for the record, I didn't know if I was going to say anything, but I think that's an important issue, and this has nothing to do with staff. I know how frustrated you guys are with this. But I did contact Senator Howe direct, and I asked him to see what he could do and to give me a direct answer one way or the other. And I haven't heard anything back yet, but I am optimistic about it. And he is on that committee and told me that he would either he said he'd contact me, and I said if he couldn't get a hold of me, to contact you, and at least give us an answer why that can't be there. So that might pop up in your calls one of these.
That would be good. I'd like to hear why.
Okay, thank you.
I agree.
Bill?
We had a CHI meeting last night at Chemical Health Initiative. We meet the third Monday every month at the English Lutheran Church on Bell Street, and it's for people, parents and adults who are concerned about keeping our young people away from drugs and alcohol. And we could use more people at the meetings and more participation from young people as well as their parents. Thank you.
And I have nothing, and with that, Chair will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.